Hurry, make the coffee.
Hurry.
We have concrete truck comes at 9. And the eclipse starts at 9.
Ready or not, here we come. Ah! Eclipse?
Yeah.
It starts at 9?
That's what the interweb says.
You make it sound like a movie.
That's what people
like
act.
There's a 3 o'clock showing and a 5:25 and a 6:10.
We don't know if pouring on an eclipse is good or not. We'll find out.
If it gets dark while we're pouring our foundation, I'm going to be a little bit miffed.
That'll be pretty funny.
All right, coffee for Alyssa.
Does it feel good to be hours away from being done with this?
I like the way you put that. Yes, it does. It feels good to be hours away from never having to do this again. I've got to get these garage door bucks solidified. So yeah, we got to get this one installed and we got to extend the plywood to the top. This one, plywood, needs to go to the top. I confirmed with our engineer this morning that 8th dowel back there, we can live without it. So good news. I need to make some trimmings to the buttress buck and get that installed. And the sewer and the boiler Thermopex penetrations need to be cut, and then we also need to cut a penetration for the garage drain. Lots to do. We have a neighbor who helped us last evening, and he's volunteered to help us again today just to get us pour ready, and then also just to be on hand in case something dramatic or exciting happens during the pour. So I think I should probably focus on getting these penetrations done, because especially the sewer, that actually needs to go in a fairly precise location. Can't just go willy-nilly. With the sewer running out of the building, we have such a close amount of drop from the corner where that main is going to originate to the septic that we need to get this pretty darn precise. What are you doing in there?
Oh crap, the concrete truck's on its way an hour early. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Ready or not. The metal strapping, I don't know where it ended up.
Okay.
It might be in the bed of the pickup, which is down on the highway. So we're sort of scrambling, which sucks. Maybe an extra day would have been a good idea. I don't know.
Nothing like pouring before you're ready, huh?
Oh yeah.
2.5. These 2.5? No.
Those are twos.
These must be 3. Don't know where the 2.5ers are. Here's 3s.
Those are 3s. That's what I meant. Long screws.
Okay.
Sorry, didn't mean to be so specific. Here, I'll swap you. That'll be good, Adam. Okay. Lay it down. Justin, working on the upper plywoods?
I think so far pouring on the eclipse means it's gonna be stressful as heck.
Yep.
Did you get it in?
I don't know. I'll have to find out.
Push hard.
Trying not to break the foam.
Okay. Pull it back out.
Freaking hurts my hand.
You're there. Go a little. That's good.
Okay.
So it turns out, well, it takes the guys a while to pump the walls, so I thought we were gonna be stressing out more, and it seems that we do have a little time to work out these last kinks, and they're able to pump where we're not working.
Say that again? What yard did you order? 34? Actually, it already has screws in it.
Okay, you can come down probably a little bit. I think this is that's probably fine. This looks better. Oh yeah.
So what we're gonna have to do, what's up?
To go up there.
Good?
Yeah, is there anything else offhand that you can think of?
So these L's I'm actually building now need to go in the corner between the buttress and the wall. I'll build these now and then they just need to be anchored into the wall and the buttress makes sense. Okay. Bye, concrete truck. Thank you.
They're yelling out numbers. I have no idea what they're saying or if it's good or bad or what or
It's fourth and 6. Like they got it. It's like, you know, end of the game. 4th down, 6 yards to go.
Is it just me or is it looking eclipsy right now? That's it. This is what people are traveling like all over the world to see. This is the eclipse right now. Pretty exciting.
This man says it's eclipsing.
They said it's at 10:16 is the fullest it's gonna be for us here.
Is that right now?
Yeah, but it's at 10:16.
This is it?
Go stare at the sun for a little while.
Feels like we just kind of went back like 30 minutes. So these guys are almost done with the west or the east wall. So we're gonna start floating. Yep, looks like we're 2 blocks from the top over here. Last truck coming in. All right, so the challenge now is to get this concrete down to the right level. The problem is the top of the wall is not the level that we're after. We need to be about a 1/4 inch off the top of the wall and we need to be level. So, you know, no big deal. Gonna have to get everybody up here floating these walls pretty quick here. This pump's gonna outrun us pretty quick, so ready to go. It's not about
pretty people can go. It's actually pretty wet now that I can get the cream to the top.
It's hard when the nubbins are hidden, can't even see your reference.
In hindsight, you should have just cut these walls.
We're nearing the end. Don't throw concrete on my buttress. So they're all done pumping the walls. They have some extra, and it looks like they're making cow patties for us. We're cutting all the nubbins off the tops of these blocks because they're a pain in our butts. Justin is kind of screeding to get to the tops of the blocks. And then Jesse and I are doing the finish troweling. All that work I did with the laser level up here yesterday, absolutely pointless. We're trying to remember our measurements, and we're floating about a 1/4 inch down from the tops of the blocks in most places on the wall.
My concrete truck. Thank you. Ready for some money?
Yeah, I think that's 50 here.
Hey.
Wow, the heat's kicking in.
Yep. Oh, okay. So basically, you bring your little train.
Nope. Justin, do you want to go to lunch with us? I actually do think everything went really well. We didn't have a single blowout.
Yeah, so the pump guys had a lot to say about ICFs, both good and bad. But really, a lot of what it was just kind of like customers not really understanding their product and thinking that this stuff's just like ballistically strong.
Yeah.
And you can just do whatever you
Well,
want.
it has its limitations.
They ran into a customer who built his own ICFs, like that type of deal.
Yep.
And they wouldn't even pump the walls because
yeah.
they apparently like started to pump it and the form started falling apart
Wow.
instantly. And the scaffold was too weak, and
Yeah,
so
sketch.
just a real mess. So they hadn't run into light form before, but they looked everything over and kind of gave it a test, you know, real quick, and they said it was really good. They're really glad that they pumped this one. The scaffold was solid, the walls held no problem, all of our bucks were good, no problem. So I think this was easy money for them, honestly.
Yeah. Before this is like permanent. We have our laser level set up, and we're just checking for any high spots. It's flirting with the blue, Jesse.
Nice.
That's what we like.
This all looks really flat. Too much.
Floating these ain't gonna happen. These are pretty much rock hard already. So now we gotta find a use for a bunch of unflattened cow patties.
Well, we had a nice relaxing lunch. Got to visit with our friend Justin, which was nice. And now we're back on site. And I want to take a little while and just kind of go around and check on things, kind of see how things turned out. Look for anything that maybe we didn't spot during the pour, you know, that might be an issue. Something that I've learned during concrete pours, stuff like this, you usually regret later because this concrete sets up and then it's like impossible to get your forms off. Because these turnbuckles and things, or cam locks and turnbuckles, are rented, they need to be clean. So we tried to keep them clean during the pour. It's amazing how easy it is to wash concrete off when it's wet. So this area over here, we strapped that with a 24-inch piece of plywood. So right in here, we had to cut those ties to get the rebar in. And this all looks just amazing. I'm really glad the trucks came early. It worked out. We have tried really hard to avoid these stressful pour situations where you just have chaos. But as it worked out, there was some kind of bouncing back and forth with the pump guys. that allowed us to kind of get caught up. And so we kind of worked on stuff they were going to be working on. And then we tried to get ahead of them a little bit, which with Justin's help, we were able to do. We got all the bracing on and everything. No lifting at all on these blocks. I mean, that block is flat on the footing, which is perfect. So all this spray foam did its job. Looks really good. Our pump guy said that's probably one of the most common issues with ICFs when they're not properly secured to the footing is you start putting mud in there and the form starts to float, which is not good. This did prove to be a little difficult here. This buck, if you remember, is sitting on the frost wall, and then this vertical buck is actually sitting on this buck, and then we strapped across this on both sides over and under. This was actually bulging slightly because we hadn't actually fastened it to this buck. It was just fastened to the ICF, which didn't have a tie in it. But we threw a few 2-inch screws in there, and I think we were able to save it. It's got a tiny, very tiny little bulge right there. All the vertical strapping worked. Everything actually looked really good. I mean, there's a little bit of concrete weeping through these holes. But I mean, honestly, you can tell how well sealed this wall is because there's no concrete on that wall whatsoever that wept. One thing we definitely learned is that you got to get these castellations off the keys. You got to get them off there because you can't rod this or screed it. And if you can't screed it, then floating it's just an absolute nightmare. You can kind of see how patchy or blotchy all this mud is. That's because there was keys on here. And something I identified pretty fast, we had to drill a hole in here with the hole saw so they could shove the pump down in here to get mud back in this corner, and then they could feed it in through the end with the pump. But the problem is when they did that, this kind of mushroomed out, and this mushroom of concrete right here, if it would have hardened, I don't know that we would ever got this piece of wood off of here. So you got to identify stuff like this while it's happening to make sure that you can remove your form. So I came around here and removed all this mud and pushed this mud back down in the hole, made sure it's nice and clear. So it's amazing. Once that concrete sets up, whatever it sets up in, on, or around, it's not going anywhere. This corner we had, this is probably the one we if you will, we screwed up more than anything. We cut so many ties over here, and it was just on the upper row. So we strapped over bottom row to bottom row, no problems. Same here, no problems at all. The bracing and scaffold system worked surprisingly well. The one thing I have to admit, and I don't even know that I want to check, I have to check. We did not have time to check the walls for plumb and straight during the pour. We did a lot of work before the pour started, but once the pour was going, it wasn't an issue. I was so busy running around trying to keep up with a lot of chaotic problems that I just didn't have time to make that check. So at this point, it is what it is, and we'll deal with it at the plates. But I'm hoping that Alyssa and I can do some measuring, and I'm hoping somehow we dodged a bullet and everything is still straight and square. It looks good to the eye, but it could be off a little bit. I'm actually waiting to get on the phone with Lightform just to kind of check in with them and let them know how things went. So I figured I'd run around with the laser and kind of just check and see how we did. I know things are really good. Alyssa and Justin did a fantastic job. This concrete went off really fast. So this mud, when it was first top of wall, was too wet almost to float. Just get a lot of cream, which most people like. But in this case, it was hard to float because we were trying to float between inside the wall, which is always hard. If you can, it's so much better to float to top of form. Then you can screed to top of form, float to top of form. So much easier. So at first it was a little gooey, and then pretty quick, Alyssa was like, "It's getting hard to work, Jesse. I need you to come check this stuff, make sure everything's good." And I'm like, okay. And then, I mean, probably 15 minutes went by, and I was able to do a little bit of just like taking the high spots out of it. But otherwise, these guys did a fantastic job. So we'll find out how good we did when it comes time to set the plates on top here. I think people have already asked, and I'll kind of spoiler upcoming videos, but why aren't there J-bolts in the top of the walls? Our engineers, who are working with primarily on the timber frame, but they do whole house engineering. They've been directing on this. Because we're using such a large plate, it's going to be roughly 3 inches by 14 inches at this point, is so big that Putting J-bolts in the concrete wall is easy at the time. It's extremely difficult to get the plates where they need to be down the road, locating them with the bolts. Their recommendation was don't put anything in the top of the wall. That's been stated multiple times on our plans. And so we're actually going to be drilling later and putting in what's called a Titan HD anchor. It's a concrete anchor, and I think they're 1/2 inch. Big anchors, big drill bit. But their feeling is that it's worth it to make sure that your plates are in the right spot. And then you can drill and put the anchor exactly where it needs to go. Thought this was worth sharing. This is how proud I am of everybody. This is 37 feet from our laser, and it's dead level. So just spent about an hour on the phone with Lightform. It's really, I just can't even say how helpful it has been. But I mean, part of the conversation was why we chose Lightform, and it's going to sound a little cheesy, but part of the reason is they answered their phone. Alyssa and I feel really strongly that as an owner builder, it's so critical that you have partners who don't just sell you stuff. We need somebody who will help us, maximize their product. In fact, even Lightform said, well, the block's only as good as the person building it. And we would say, well, true, but it's also as good as the company's support for their own product, Can't just stick this stuff on a street corner and expect people to figure it out, especially owner builders like us. So we're very thankful that we chose Lightform. The support was huge. Even just knowing when things are okay. We went through all this entire thing yesterday and then this morning. Unfortunately, it was during the pour, but just kind of looked through things really quick, and Casey was like, yep, looks good. Yep, looks good. That's so reassuring to us. I mean, we're dumping thousands of dollars of our hard-earned money into this project, and it's just nice when somebody can look at it with you and say you're good. So feel pretty good about it. Lightform's of course happy. The pour went well. Their product looks good. They said they weren't worried about it, which I believe them because they do this stuff all the time. We weren't really stressed necessarily. It was just that the trucks came a couple hours early. Alyssa and I really put a lot of effort into, and so did our help, Justin, making sure things were strong and reinforced. And I think I have to say that if by some chance the pump guys are watching this video, Daryl and Billy and I think Josh, you guys are as important to the success of this project as anybody. We've loved working with you guys. You've been really helpful. Your knowledge, again, their knowledge of pouring and ICFs and how to get concrete in the right places at the right time, and it's as critical to the success of this project as everything else. So thank you for all your help. Alyssa's resting now, thankfully. She's finally getting some shut-eye, I think, just taking a break and not being filthy for once. So I think we're gonna rest tonight. Tomorrow, housekeeping day. We've got a lot of stuff to catch up on. We're gonna leave the scaffolding up here because I think it'll help us get our plates on. We might be able to do the plates before we do the slab, which seems kind of backwards maybe. We'll have to see, but I really don't want to take the scaffolding down if we don't have to in order to get the plates on. So we'll kind of chase that down, see if that's going to work for us, but tomorrow we're going to catch up. Thanks for joining us for this hopefully not too chaotic video, although it was pretty chaotic. And I'm not sure, I think probably a couple days we'll start back up on this. We'll be tearing a lot of stuff down, cleaning stuff up, and then starting work on the slab.